Since I started this channel, I've never seen Nebraska win the first game of their season, which means I've never gotten to pop on a live stream and react to a 1-0 start. But this year, that should change. 16 returning starters, a revamped offense with weapons everywhere. Year 2 for a coach who's known for making a jump in his second season. Normally, the matchups against less talented teams aren't that exciting, and I'd rather watch more well-known teams, but similar to another group of 5 team that pushed Frost out of a job, Utep actually presents a challenge. So today, we'll talk about the matchup, why this one could be closer than expected, and I'll give you my final score prediction. But what's up, guys? I'm Connor Hayden, and this is Corn Crazed. If you're a fan of Nebraska or the Big Ten, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss my post-game live reaction. And if you think Raiola throws for over 250 yards in his debut, hit the like button and help us get to 1,000. But now, let's get into it.
He's hit and set. He's taking a shot downfield, wide open end zone, caught, touchdown.
I don't know what you were doing Saturday, but I watched Georgia Tech run for almost 200 yards and then kick the walk-off field goal to upset a top 10 Florida State as a double-digit underdog in Ireland. Then I watched Nevada and SMU, a game that Vegas listed as a 28-point spread, go down to the very end, and it took a 16-point fourth quarter for SMU to pull off the win. Neither of these games matter much for the Big Ten, but it's just another reminder that we don't know who the best teams are yet. We might think we do based off previous performances, but with the portal moves and the coaching changes that we see every offseason, it takes a few weeks to figure out who's a legit contender. Nebraska's a big favorite Saturday, but that doesn't mean that Utep thinks they're going to lose. There's a reason Matt Rule puts so much emphasis on going 1-0 each week, because if you aren't careful, you could end up down 2 scores going into the fourth quarter to a team you were supposed to beat by 4 touchdowns. Just look back to Scott Frost last season. He brought in a new OC to help fix the offense, a new quarterback who was a better passer than what they had before, new receivers from the portal, and the game that put him out of a job was against Georgia Southern, a team with a brand new coach, a new scheme on both sides of the ball, and a ton of transfers who were relatively unknown. Any of that sound familiar? Rule made those same changes this offseason. UTEP's going through a similar rebuild to what Clay Helton was dealing with at Georgia Southern. And once again, nobody thinks Nebraska's on upset alert. Saturday served as a warning. Just because you showed positive signs last year doesn't mean you're due to continue the trend. Just because you missed a bowl game and you couldn't execute when it mattered doesn't mean you can't win 10 games this time around. It might be a boring matchup to most college football fans, but with so much for Nebraska's offense to prove, it's one of their most important games of the year. The first depth chart released this morning, and on offense, Rule decided to list all 4 running backs with an "or," meaning there's no true starter and all of them are going to play. Janiran Bonner's officially the number 1 slot ahead of IGC and Carter Nelson, which is crazy since he was playing fullback last season. But outside of that, everything else on offense looks pretty much how I expected it to. On defense, Bayer took a starting linebacker spot now that Wright's out, and the DBs have 4 new guys in the rotation with Amari Sanders, Derek Branch, Ramir Stewart, and Sierra Wright. But the first team looks almost identical to the group that finished last season ranked number 11. And on special teams, they haven't decided on the number 1 kicker yet, but Ramir Johnson and Ja'Cory Barney will be the top returners on the kickoff team, and IGC's their punt returner. Again, this was all expected, but it's exciting to see who earned a role versus who's still competing for one with an "or" next to their name. I want to get into UTEP's roster, their new head coach, and how they match up with Nebraska. But first, I gotta shout out our new sponsor, Prize Picks. If you haven't tried the app out yet, you can sign up with our promo code CORN and get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. They offer almost every sport, and all you do is choose which players will go for more or less than the app has listed. Scores, yards, catches, points, they've got it all, and there are a ton of players to choose from in college and the NFL. I made profit from the 2 plays I posted in Discord this weekend, and then Todd hit me up on Instagram to show me he won $60 tailing my favorite one and another $15 from his own lineup. To kick off the college football season, they're offering a promo for Jalen Milroe to throw for at least 1 yard against Western Kentucky, so make sure you include that square in your lineup for this week. Prize Picks is available in Nebraska, California, Texas, and over 30 other states, so if you see your state colored in here, you can play there. I'll give out my picks on the Friday night live streams and on Discord, but if you have a good read for which players are about to have a good game or you think somebody's going to struggle, you can use our promo code and join us over there. To really understand where Utep football's at today, we've got to look at their new head coach who just came over from Austin Peay. They won 9 games last year and made it to the FCS playoffs. Then, after he got the Utep job, some of the best guys from that team decided to follow him. His name's Scotty Waldron, and he's a proven builder. He took over at Austin Peay in 2020 and finished with 4 wins. Then they hit 6. Then in 2022, they won the ASUN Conference, and last season they took off after their 17-point loss to Tennessee to eventually make it to the FCS playoffs. The difference between building a team back then and building one now is that he doesn't have to do it by himself. He already has a bunch of good players that he's been developing who fit his system, and it looks like 8 guys who started on that 9-win team last season earned starting jobs at UTEP. Javon Jackson was a second-team All-American running back and ran for almost 1,400 yards. Trey Goodman was first-team All-Conference and had 700 yards receiving. Cam Thomas was their number 2 receiver, and he had over 600. 3 more proven transfer receivers came, 2 offensive linemen, a safety. He stole Deion's strategy of bringing the best players in who he's already been developing, but he didn't kick the good ones to the curb. Texas State was in a similar position last season. Their head coach was hired from Incarnate Word, and with the help of a bunch of proven transfers that knew his system, the Texas State offense averaged almost 40 points a game in his first year of that rebuild. There's no doubt that UTEP's got work to do before they can be a consistent contender against Power 5 teams, but their players won't come in confused or look sloppy. Outside of rolling with a new QB, the offense is going to look similar to the one that averaged 35 points a game last year at Austin Peay. On the other side, their defense isn't as proven. UTEP gave up almost 400 yards and 30 points a game last year. They lost 4 all-conference defenders, and the replacements either don't have much starting experience or they came from FCS schools. Maurice Westmoreland is their star player who's definitely an NFL talent, and he finished with 7.5 sacks last season. Their top safety had 74 tackles at Austin Peay, and one of the linebackers was a stud at Tulsa, but overall, they're pretty raw and unproven. Their coach hypes up their D-line as one of the best units on the field, and I saw a preseason All-Conference USA list that has all 4 starters listed from the first team to the 4th. They gave up 24 points a game last year, but maybe new energy from this coaching staff gives the D a boost, even though they lost some of their best defenders. Looking at who has the edge, it's hard to find areas where Nebraska doesn't dominate. Their offense features multiple future NFL linemen and 2 QBs who are good enough to win Big Ten games today. The defense ranked 11th nationally last season, and they returned damn near everybody. The special teams leaves more to be desired, but UTEP's kicker isn't great, and they're not going to have that explosive of a return game. Scotty Waldron is 34 years old. This is his first big-time job, and his staff's in a similar boat. The co-OC had the same title at Louisiana Tech, but they're nowhere near as experienced as Nebraska's coordinators. And last is motivation. Nebraska's tired of losing. The seniors know that this game sets the tone for the rest of the season. UTEP's a mixed bag of returners and transfers who've either never had expectations of winning or they've seen enough good happen in their careers that they aren't at that point of desperation yet. This is a must-win game for Matt Rule, and there is a lot less pressure on UTEP. Right now, the line's set at 27.5, and the total's 48.5. So Vegas is predicting the final score to be something like 38-10. And if the offense is just a little better than last season, they should have at least 5 touchdowns. Harburg led the way against Northern Illinois and Louisiana Tech, and they scored 28 and 35 in those games. Imagine what they could have done with a stronger passing game. There's an argument that Rule could keep things chill so he doesn't show all his cards before Colorado, but then in his presser today, he said he wants Dylan to play this week the same way he would in Week 12, which means they're going to come out with a strong game plan and let him do his thing from the start. You know I love picking Nebraska to cover the spread, but in a spot like this where you haven't seen the new QB, there are a bunch of new guys on the other team, and Vegas probably doesn't have enough data to set a perfect line, it kind of feels like a guess. Will Rule get conservative and play the backups or the freshmen if they have a big lead? Does UTEP start taking deep shots hoping to hit since Nebraska's D-line should crush their run game? They're questions that I don't know the answer to yet, so this one's a stay away from me. For Nebraska, the question is, how fast can the offense get things going? Do they move the ball with ease and protect it so they can finish drives with scores, or will the first half be slow while they work out the kinks in their first pressure scenario? The concern is having a true freshman QB out there in his first college action, facing a front that's gonna blitz him and put as much pressure as they can on to try and get him rattled. If Dylan can move around the pocket and the line holds up long enough to let him get the ball out, the DBs are going to get worked by a way more athletic receiving core than they've ever gone up against. For UTEP, I question their line play. Their skill guys in the QB room have enough experience to put up some yards on Nebraska's secondary, but the D line with Jamari, Nash, and Ty could cause some serious problems. Two of their starters come from the FCS. Only one starter from last year's team returns, and the rest of the O-line is pretty inexperienced. If Tony White's defense shuts down the run game and forces quick throws or the tunnel screens that Matt Rule thinks are coming, it's going to come down to open field tackling and not letting any of their receivers beat you over the top. Outside of their skill on offense, the D-line's the best unit on their team, and they have to get pressure on Dylan to force some bad throws, because if they give him time to throw and the four-man running back rotation starts to wear him down, it's going to be a really long day. Nebraska's weakness on offense is the line, or at least it has been in the past, so if UTEP can't take advantage there, I don't see a path to victory. Making a prediction's hard since there's so much unknown about both these teams, but the one thing we can't ignore is how much bigger and faster Nebraska's roster is. UTEP's receivers are all under 6 feet tall. Their running back might be 5'8". The average size of their D-line is 6'1", 265 compared to Nebraska, who's 6'4", 300. In early season games like this, things usually start slow. It could be 14-7 at halftime, but after some adjustments and the rotation starts to factor in since the starters are getting tired, the bigger and faster team starts to pull away. If Rule's really planning to let Dylan get into the playbook, we should see a few deep balls that lead to quick scores, and if Nebraska's putting up points with ease, it's going to force UTEP to try and match, hopefully leading to takeaways for the D. But it's never that easy, at least it hasn't been in Lincoln. UTEP's players have a ton of experience in their offense, and Nebraska, on the flip side, is working with new guys on the line, at running back, receiver, QB, and in the coaching staff. So does it click right away, or are they going to start slow while they try to get on the same page? I'm predicting a fast start, some confusion on a few drives that lead to punts, but ultimately a defensive performance that never gives us any doubt about who's going to win the game. I think a shutout is extremely unlikely, but if the first team holds them to a touchdown and a field goal, that would make sense. So I'm going to take Nebraska to win 37-10 to start the season on a high note, and hopefully we get to see a lot of Nebraska's depth come in to get some game experience before the competition gets tougher over these next few weeks. But I want to know what you think, so let me know in the comments below. Do you think Dylan plays the perfect game and doesn't have a single turnover? Which of the four running backs leads in total yards now that we know all of them are technically first string on the depth chart? And what's your biggest concern with UTEP? I think we saw Nebraska's secondary get beat enough last season to have to wonder how much better they're going to look this year. And with so many proven receivers and a coach who isn't afraid to play fast to catch guys off guard, I just hope they're ready for a strong passing game. But that's all I've got for today. So until next time, thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Go Big Red.